start off by just simply explaining chip carving is the removal of pieces of wood from a flat surface in geometric patterns in, in free flow methods like trees or birds or bushes or in lettering. So I thought it would be nice for you to see what is chip carving before we begin into the other methods of learning. Okay, so this is an example of a piece I made for my parents. Here we have free form. Here we have lettering B in the center, and then we have geometric patterns on the side. If you like precision and if you like geometric shapes, this is a wonderful hobby. And the financial investment in this is pretty small compared to other hobbies you can have. This piece, can you folks see this? This piece, I'm not going to pick it up, is made of butternut. I made this for my sister and one for me, and we both have them in a hallway. It's supposed to be a lazy Susan, but I think it's too pretty to put ketchup on it. So anyway, we have them hanging on our walls. I thought this would be nice to see. This is a blank. I make these for weddings, and this is what you can do with it, like so. If you can see the before and the after. When my wife and I got married, we didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. So we bought very inexpensive wedding rings. And after we upgraded, we kind of put them in the box, and my wife thought I threw them away, but I didn't. So, but I always wanted to find a way to mount them. So this is made of butternut, and I put two birds kissing each other. We have a daughter, so these are supposed to be like flares or fireworks going off. Then we have a ring of hearts, and we have a little lettuce down here, and this hangs in our bedroom. So my point of this is that you can make things that that can be a family heirloom, passed down from child to child. Here's an example of a blank that I've drawn the pattern to, and I haven't started cutting on it. I thought it'd be good for you to see what a piece of wood looks like before you begin carving. Here's an example of the basic blank plate that you're going to buy. And then again, this is a pattern that you would have on the wood before you begin cutting. And what's important when you look at patterns like this, your pencil lines have to be very sharp and crisp. You cannot have a wide line, because as you're cutting, you're going to have to decide, are you going to be on the left of the line, in the center of the line, on the right of the line? So it's important that your patterns are very, very sharp and crisp. This is something I wanted you to see. It's simply a blank, but you can do so many things with the same piece of wood. This represents spring. This is summer. This is fall. And this is winter, which is a snowflake. We have these in our living room. And then you can have geometric patterns. Again, all of the same piece of wood, and they look all so different to each other. My point of this is that the possibilities are endless with the creativity of what you can do with this type of carving. Here's a couple of more free form style. This is something else. And then this is something else, like so. Then you can work with boxes. This is a basket weave style box, and then you put the chip carve on top. All right. So that gives you a good orientation as to what chip carving is. Again, you're taking a knife and you're cutting slices of wood out in a geometric pattern or a free flowing pattern, or by lettering. All right. So now that I got you all interested, how do you learn where to go and what to do? So let's go to the second camera. Okay, so I'm going to suggest that you buy two books. One is Chip Carving, I'm sorry, The Complete Guide to Chip Carving, which is by Wayne Barton. He's an outstanding carver, dear friend of mine. And this gives you an A to Z introduction to chip carving. Here you have, here you have tools and materials, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the idea of chip carving, the different kinds of woods that are used, how to sharpen your knives, how to hold them. We're going to talk a lot about how to hold the knives, the basic things about how to make it comfortable for you during your carving, laying out and transferring patterns, borders, drawing rosettes, lettering, how to finish your carving once you're finished and you want to preserve it. Very good book. There are a lot of introduction to chip carving books. I happen to like this one. You can't go wrong by buying this one, but just be aware there are other books on the market that are good as well. The second book I would recommend is Basic Chip Carving with Pam Grisham. This is an excellent book, and it's different than Wayne's book because it covers the first initial orientation of what is chip carving and how you hold the knives and blah, blah, blah. But the good thing about her book is that there are exercises. You get out, you learn how to draw practice boards. And then exercise one is your basic triangle. How do you carve a triangle? And this is the one art form where you are always going to be paying attention to the orientation of grain of your wood. And if you can do good at chip carving, then you can do good in any other kind of carving because the precision and the detail and paying attention to the orientation of grain is really the Achilles heel of this kind.
We realize the camera's upside down. We're just gonna rotate the camera here.
Oh. Oh, I wasn't upside down.
You were upside down. You were not
I
sitting
thought
on
it was
your
me.
head.
Sorry, guys. Technical difficulties. Okay. All right, very good. So anyway, she has 6 different exercises in this book. And I would, by the time you get to the 6th exercise, you're going to be chomping on the bit to get to your first project. When you do go to your first project, there's going to be a plethora of different styles and patterns and source books of what you can find on the internet or on websites or in books. And there's hundreds of books on the market for this. I like Wayne because he spends a lot of time with design and pattern source. He explains balance and he explains why something appeals to you when you look at a carving. All right. So anyway, the next thing you can do is get on YouTube like this, and you can go on YouTube and just type in chip carving, and there's going to be a large group of people who can be tickled for you to look at their videos about how to do carvings. Then they often have their own website, and you can subscribe to their website and get a full length of their video clips and learn how to do things. And I encourage people to support artists. It's tough out there, and you ought to, it's not an expensive thing to do. You can also go to roundups, which are a group of 150, 200 people. They spend 3-4 days together, and there'll be cypress knee carving and relief carving and cottonwood bark carving and all this stuff. And it's just wonderful to rub elbows with people who are interested in other things than you are. And they're from all over the country. That's called a roundup. And I met Wayne Barton for the first time at a roundup, and it's been great ever since. The other thing you can do is simply take tech classes. We were going to have Wayne Barton come to the Wilderness Center, and but the virus issue took over, and we had to cancel that. But if you're interested, if you like this genre, then and you're interested in learning more, then send us an email, and we'll put you on the list to attend the class. Okay, so now you're probably wondering, what do I need to do some carving? So a lot of this stuff is already in your house. The things that you are going to have to buy, hold it. You are going to have to buy 3 knives. You're going to have to buy 3 knives. Now, don't go to the hobby shop and buy an inexpensive knife for $5. You're just buying frustration and pain and agony. You really should, this is the one item that you really should invest a fair amount of money on. And I think these knives are like $35 a piece, something like that. So this is your classic chip carving knife. And the reason why, and this is sold by Wayne Barton again, and the reason I like it is because it's flat on 2 edges. Now, some knives are round, and that doesn't help you, because when you put the blade in your hand and you put it, you enclose your hand around it, you're going to get muscle memory. And with a round blade, it's going to roll on you, and you're not going to be able to judge where the orientation of the blade is to the wood. So get it, and you can also see chip carving knives are unique. You've got this angle, this sharp angle off the blade. Most wood carving knives come straight out. Chip carving knife is unique, and 100% of the cutting is on the last 1/4 inch tip of the blade. All right. This is another style. The heel, which is the back of the blade, is smaller on this knife, and it allows you to make like curls and swirls, and there's not so much steel on the back, and it'll allow you to make turns quicker and easier. All right, and then this is a stabbing knife, and it's exactly what it's used for. You grab it like this, and you just stab the wood, and you lean forward, and it makes this really cute little triangle. And you can go with patterns, and you can do all kinds of things like that with a stabbing knife. Nice accents. All right, so these are the 3 knives that you're gonna, and there's really not much else to buy concerning knives. That's it. And I just wanted to mention also, this is what I carried my knives in. And it started off as a blank little box, and I put a basket weave on it, and I did a little customization to it. But this is kind of a cool little way to transport your blades in. All right. The next thing you're going to need are sharpening stones. You do not use a strop with this kind of a knife. The strop will roll over and dull the sharp edge of the blade. I like ceramic stones because you don't have to recondition them. They stand flat. There are 2 kinds of ceramic stones. One is a medium, and the other is a fine stone. I use my fine stone almost all the time. To sharpen one of these, it's different than other kinds of knives because the blade is going almost like a funnel. You don't have a bevel on the inside like you do with other knives. You just put it flat to your blade, flat to your stone, and you raise up only about 10 degrees. And when you go back and forth on this, you're counting 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then you go back to the other side, you lift up about 10 degrees. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And the reason it's important to count is because if you don't count and you do 20 on one side and 5 on the other, this blade is going to be, instead of it going, the sharp edge being in the center of the steel, it's going to start warping off to the side. And when you try to go into the wood, the blade will go someplace that you don't expect. So to control the cut, you have to have the same sharpness on both sides, same wear of the steel on both sides. All right, so that's what you need for the cutting and the sharpening.
We have a question, Bob.
Yeah.
Um, do you develop your own patterns? If so, any tips on doing that?
Uh, I'm not, I don't do my own patterns. I look for inspiration and then I customize it. I do customize patterns that I do find. When we were kids, that old spirograph, I have one of those. I have the deluxe model. And so I play with that. I get these strange collections of intersecting lines, and then I try to do something with it. But I think I don't, so far, I don't sit down with a drafting line and draw my own patterns, but I do take other patterns and customize them to what I want. Okay, good question. Um, all right, so next is drawing materials. We're finished with the sharpening end of things. Drawing materials, we've got mechanical, we have a mechanical pencil, you have to have a good eraser, you need, let's see, good eraser. And I know this is strange, but I always carry my fingernail clipper with me. Isn't that weird? And the reason why you have a fingernail clipper is that when you're cutting the knife and you've got your thumb, we haven't gone through this yet, but that little piece of your fingernail will cause gouges in the surface of the wood, and you don't want that. So you have the option of either doing a Band-Aid over that, or you clip it off. So I just take my fingernail clipper and I clip it off. You're going to need 220 grit sandpaper because you're going to have to prep the surface, and 220 is about as fine as you want to get. You're going to need glue because I promise you, you're going to have some chip outs, and you're going to have to take your handy dandy tweezers, find where that little piece of wood went onto your table, and then re-glue it and repair your carvings. It happens to everybody. It's just the way it is. Okay. You're going to probably have two different size measuring devices. One is plastic for easy, simple stuff. I use metal rulers like this because plastic, I found right in this area where it's used the most, it'll actually cause a divot. And I don't like that. So I use metal and I just run my lines in like that. However, let me just warn you right up front, you never take your blade and run it along a ruler. That is an absolute no-no. You'll damage your knife and spend 2-3 hours trying to fix it. So, and then you need a good compass. Now this is manufactured by Alvin. It's a German company. And this is a good piece of equipment to have. So the two things I think are the most important to buy in quality are your knives. You'll spend probably $100 on a good set of 3 knives, and I think you'd behoove you to have a good compass. All right, all right. Let's see. Patterns. Hold on just for a second. Repair to wood. Let's talk about wood for a minute. You're going to be carving with basswood. Basswood is extremely straight in its grain. It's a soft wood. It takes the cutting easily. It does not compress or it doesn't squeeze and compress like other types of wood when the knife is trying to cut through it. It's uniform in the density along the edge here that you can see. Oak, if you ever looked at the side, it's got banding. It has a hard central line that's got porosity, and then it's a hard central line. So oak is not a good wood to work with chip carving. So you're going to use basswood. Now the thing about basswood is, hold it. There's a couple of different kinds of basswood. Now, I don't know if you can see this well enough. Hold it, sorry. All right. When you do projects, you want to buy northern basswood. This is grown in Wisconsin, Minnesota, Upper Michigan. The wood is slow growing, and it's white in color like this. and it has a higher density and is more crisp to the cutting. Um, the wood that's grown in Ohio is yellow, is more open grain. So I normally practice on Ohio basswood just because it's readily available and not expensive. But when I go to projects, I go to northern basswood. It's a much better final product that you'll see. Okay, just want to mention that. Butternut is also a wonderful book, wonderful wood to work with. It's considered a white walnut. It's softer than hard walnut, da-da. And you can do beautiful chip carving with that. So after you get done with a couple of projects with basswood, try some butternut. I think you'll be really, really tickled. The butternut itself takes a beautiful stain and is very striking. All right. Let's see. Why don't we talk about practice boards for a minute?
Hey, Bob,
Yeah.
the question is, the three knives that you are talking about, what's the difference between the three knives?
Okay. Let's go back to the three knives. Okay. So here's the two cutting knives like this. The heel, which is the back part, right? Let's see if I can, maybe I can get a, here, hold on. Let me do this. Let me try this. Maybe that's easier for you to see. The heel, do you see how thick, how wide the distance is between the sharp edge here and the back here, and how it comes to a point, and this is much, much larger from this point to this point? When you do a curl, like, give me a sec. When you do a curl with like this, maybe a little more pronounced. Well, shoot, I was looking for a particular practice board. Here we go. If you're trying to do something like this, which is a real sharp curl right in here, or even more so right in here, this knife will be difficult to do that. It'll cause what's called chatter. It'll tear the wood up in the fibers. And if you use a smaller blade like this, a little sharper, smaller blade like this, you can make that turn much, much easier. That's the reason for the difference in the two knives. Now, the stab knife is unique. This is, you literally hold it like this, and I'm gonna try to make sure that you can see what happens here. You hold it like this, you push into the wood, and bring it forward, and you make this cute little triangle looking thing there. Here, I'll do a couple of them. Like this. Like this. Can you see this? See how that works? So that's the difference in the three knives. That's the difference. This one, I use this a lot, probably 80% of the time I'll use my big blade knife. And then on tight turns, I'll go to this blade. Okay. All right. All right. Then we have a stabbing knife. So you need all three really, but I would start off with these two, but I would definitely suggest getting the one that has the thinner back to it. Good question. Okay. Okay. Practice boards. This is the one carving genre. This is the subculture of carving where when you practice, you are actually going to be doing exactly what you do on a project. So and you can draw patterns that are on your project, you can duplicate those patterns on a practice board and actually practice what you're going to be doing before you do it. So you are going to get used to drawing practice boards. Now this is just basswood. It's about 3/4 of an inch thick. It's about a foot, 14, 15 inches long and about 10 inches wide. And, this is a classic size for you to handle. It's easy to carve with this size. And I put these little scallopy things and I did them in different orientation because this is the one type of carving that you are gonna never forget. Where's the direction of grain? Because that will control your ability to prevent wood from blowing out. All right, so, all right. All right, so here's the beginning of chip carving, your basic triangle. And let me go to, oh, hold on. Oh, I want to mention something else that you're going to end up buying. You're going to end up getting some tracing paper because you're going to find patterns in books that you're going to want to copy. So you're going to need some tracing paper here. And then also you're going to need, this is manufactured by Sorel. This is a graphite paper. It's not carbon paper. Carbon has got a grease to it and it's hard to get off the wood. And it's actually repellent to your polyurethane. So if you use graphite paper, I think this is for sale at almost any hobby store that I can think of. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that. And the other thing let me mention also is when you're finished with your carving, I use general finishes. It's like a polyurethane, but it's more like a pudding. It's real thick and it doesn't flow. You have a lot more control. It doesn't go places where you don't want it to go, and it has a beautiful color to it. Okay, now we're back to our carving. All right, so the reason I have this paper here is that I wanted to explain about why orientation of grain is so important. When you cut into a piece of wood, these lines represent the orientation of grain, just as if we were talking about this here, all right? And so you want to cut from the top with the direction of grain. You don't want to cut from here and go into the grain because that's how you get chattering and that's how you don't get an even cut. So if it's at all possible, and sometimes there's no way to avoid it, you want to go with the grain. So on this example, you would be cutting from the top of this triangle down and then going back and cutting from the top of this triangle down. And then this, it doesn't matter which way you go. It does not matter. Now, if you rotated the triangle to this, you would be cutting from this. Again, here's the orientation of the grain, and you're going to be cutting with the grain. So you're going to go from this point here to this point here. And then you're going to cut from this point here to this point here. Remember, that's the orientation of grain to your cut. This is the orientation of grain to your cut. And then it doesn't matter which direction you go here. All right. In the center of your triangle, the center where all three sides meet is going to be right about here. A lot of people that I've met actually put that little dot on their on their chips to remind them as to where they're making their cuts so that they know that that's going to be the center of the cut. And it's real important. And we're going to talk, let me not get in front of myself. That's the basic line of cutting. Now let's chat for a second about how you hold your knife, because everything starts in the beginning and this is where you hold your knife. All right, so you take your blade like this and you just wrap your finger around it, and your thumb right there needs to go on the bottom of that handle right there. This is called position 1, and you're going to choke up on your blade way far, just like that. Can you guys see how far I'm up on that blade? I mean, you can hardly see it. I think this is one of the nice things about this type of carving, because you're controlling the blade so much. I don't mind if children get a hold of this. I mean, like 8, 9, 10-year-old kids, because you're not going to cut yourself. You notice I'm not wearing a thumb protector, or I'm not wearing a glove.
I mean, you're just going to be pushing down into the wood. You're not going to be bringing it towards you. You're not going to do like this, like like in the round carving or relief carving, things like that. I think this is a safe way of carving. So my point is that you're gonna put your thumb here, you're gonna choke up on the blade, and then you're gonna put your thumb on the wood and your knuckles on the wood. And do you see the angle? Here, I'm trying to get this. If you see the angle of that blade to the wood, that's about 65 degrees, and that's what you want. And then, now this is called position 1. If you want to, then you're going to have to learn position 2. So you take your thumb from this point of the handle and you rotate this blade like this, and you put your thumb on the top of the handle like that. And then you go back down. That's called position 2, and you're at 65 degrees. I would say 70–75% of the time I use position 1. But you have to get used to position 2 in your carving. You're gonna have to learn how to do it. And once you do it a few hundred times, it'll be just like second nature. I was practicing for this talk today, and I was doing it so quickly I didn't even think about it. I really had to concentrate on talking as I was doing it because it became second nature. So here's position 1, 65 degrees. Your thumb goes against the wood, the knuckles go against the wood, and you're choked up on the metal, on the blade like that. And then you roll it, and that's position 2, just like that. All right, so let's do a couple of triangles. Now, this is my practice board. It looks kind of crappy because it's my practice board. So here's the orientation of your wood. Now, each one to make a board, you take your handy dandy ruler and you mark off 1/4 of an inch every single line, 1/4 of an inch, and you draw the first line. And then you come down here and you draw, and then you mark off 1/4 of an inch, and you do it all the way around. And then you take your ruler, your other bigger ruler, and you connect the dots. And now suddenly you have a grid pattern, and each square is 1/4 of an inch. And that's what you want to use to practice. So what I've done is I've drawn already these 2 triangles because I wanted to show you that piece of paper. I wanted to relate that piece of paper so that you could see the orientation of the grain to the cutting of the triangle. So what you're going to do, am I good? Okay, so what you're going to do is choke up on the blade. Your thumb goes down, your knuckles are against the wood. And I'm doing this on a table for the camera, but in reality, you're going to be doing this in your lap. This is a very, very awkward position. You would never carve holding a board like this in reality. This is for y'all's benefit. So you go into the wood like that. Now, can you see the angle of the blade? The precision is that you start right at the junction of the grid and you cut to the end of the square down here. All right, and then I'm going to move the board. I'm going to go to position 2 of my blade. I'm going to go right into that junction of that top of the box. I'm going to push down like so, like so. Then I'm going to take the blade out. I'm going to roll back into position. See, I did that so quick. I didn't mean to do that so quick. So I was doing it here, and then I'm rolling it over, and then I'm going right back in. Did you hear that? That sounds so pretty. That means that you have a sharp blade. That means you got a sharp knife, and the cut is clean. Let's do it again. So the orientation of the wood is this way. You go at the very top. You go into the wood like that so that everybody can see where the wood is. And then you're going to roll it into position 2. Like so. Pull that out, roll back into position 1. Then you're out. Now, if there's a piece of wood, if there's a chip that's inside the triangle that you need to, it's not coming out. Let's say that chip that just came out, it didn't come out, and you don't understand why it's not coming out. Do not take your knife and pry it out. Two reasons. One is you'll break the tip. The other is that you'll break the wood in an unrepairable position. So you want to just go right back in, clean up your cuts, clean up your 3 cuts. And do you see the bottom tip right there? That's what you want to see. That's a clean triangle cut. All right.
So you're basically retracing the cuts you made to clean it up?
Sometimes I don't follow my line perfectly, so I'll go back and shave a millimeter off. Now, the difficulty, if you don't have the chip out and you're still working and you can't see because that wood is still in place, sometimes you won't go into the same slice and you'll create what I call a shadow, and you have to take that shadow out. Yeah, but sometimes I do go back. You want to finish a triangle or a cut or whatever you're doing, make sure that's correct before you move on to the next one, because there's nothing worse than going back and realizing you have 30 or 40 chips to fix. All right, and then here we go again. Here's the triangle. Orientation of wood is this way. So here's the triangle, and you can go from here in, here in, and then I can switch into position 2 and just go straight in like that.
We have another question from the internet.
Yeah.
Is position 2 basically a time saver so you don't have to rotate the wood? It seems like you could do it all with position 1, but you'd have to turn the wood more often?
Actually, you're going to be forced into doing position 2 because of the orientation of the wood. It's all dictated on the orientation of the wood. You will not be able to use position 1 in some of the cuts because you would be going into the grain. That's a negative, if you can avoid it. Sometimes you can't. And then here's another side of the board where I've gone twice, like this is a 1/2 inch and then this is a 1/4 inch. And there's a lot of things you can do with this. You can take your triangles and make interesting patterns like this. See that little chip out right there? I don't know how close you can see it right there. Here's another little chip out right there. And I leave things in so that people can see what happens with your carving sometimes, and that's why you have to have a little piece of glue. Let me also mention here toothpicks, because it took me a while to find these toothpicks. These toothpicks that I use for glue, they're flat. This is not a round toothpick. I don't know how well you can see that. I like flat toothpicks because it's easier for me to control the glue that's on the glues that's on the toothpick. Round toothpicks just seem to be too much of a glob. It makes like a teardrop on it. And flat toothpicks, I can have more control over the placement of the glue. Right. Another thing I want to mention is the tweezers. These are what I use right now, but really I would like to get some really sharp-ended tweezers so that I can pick up pieces of wood and delicately place them back into the board for glue up. But anyway, you're going to have tweezers as well. So maybe that helps you out. All right. Let me just mention a few things about carving. Let me bring this camera a little bit closer over here. All right. Am I good?
You did, yeah.
Okay, so you put the board on your lap, and you your elbow right here. Your elbow, you want to bring your elbow in close to your body. You don't want your elbow sticking way out from the board. You want your elbow in close because you're going to be using power from your shoulders, your your elbow right here and then your wrist. If your elbow is way out from your body, it's just going to feel so strange, and you're not going to have near the strength, and you're going to wear yourself out, and that's a real negative. So here's an example of here's the orientation of the grain. Now, would you go in like this? No, you would not, because you're going into the grain. Let me say this again. Here's the grain. You would not use position 1 and go into the grain. You would use position 2 and you would go with the grain. Does that make sense to the caller or whoever that was?
Mhm.
All right. The board is flat. My elbow is in, and I'm going to go in, and I'm just going to follow that line like so. And you, as you come up, as you reach the end of your cut, you can see here my blade is deep, but as you come up, you see how the blade is coming out of the wood? A lot of people make the mistake of cutting too far, too deep, too far. All right, now here, I would stay in position 2, and I would go with the grain in this direction. See, and I'm going deeper and deeper and deeper into the wood. It's shallow here, it's deep here. And then, ta-da, and that did not come out. So instead of fooling around with it, you just go back with your knife and you just cut it out. Now, you see down in there, some of the wood, as I went back in a second time, I didn't follow the same path. That's going to happen to you. Don't worry about it. Just go right back into your wood, with your blade, and cut that out. All right. Okay. Now, another thought is if you're going to use artificial light, keep the light low so it doesn't blare you in the face. And I'm left-handed, so I would put the light to my right. If I were right-handed, I would put the light to my left, because I don't want my hand to create a shadow over my carving and then make a mistake because I'm following a shadow and not a line. Okay. All right. Another thing, you see how I just made this chip right here? You want to cut the next line right next to it. You don't cut this side, you cut this side. Does that make sense? And the reason is that if you cut here, you could break off large pieces of wood along this line. So you want to go right in like this, and you want to follow your next, hold it. You want to follow that in just like so. Pull out, go to position 2. And then there you go. Easy peasy. Huh?
About 5 more minutes.
Okay, so let's see. Let's see. Let me also mention a few other things about your compass. I've got about 5 minutes left to go. Let me mention something about your compass to help you out. The tip of your graphite, the tip of your pencil lead here should be beveled out so that as you draw your circle, your bevel will be consistent. If it's rounded, you're going to have a variety in, not a circle, but you're going to have something less than a circle. All right, so that's an important little tip to have. What else? Are there any other questions? Are there any other questions?
Everything that's been asked.
Pardon me?
That's everything that's been asked online.
Okay, well, I'm that good.
You are.
All right, so let me do a couple of things. When I buy my wood, I'm going to mention something here. When I buy my wood, I'm gonna plug Bob Statlander here for a second because I've known Bob for about 15, 16 years. I buy about 3/4 of my wood from Bob. And it's not just because he carries high quality northern basswood. It's also because when I have questions about how to put on coatings or where, how to apply and how to fix things, Bob is a wonderful person to work with. I know that he's a sponsor, but regardless of that, I would recommend that you do business with him. There are a lot of people who provide wood carving supplies and wood and all that, but he's one of the foundations of our community. I think he's up in Manaway, and I want to promote him for a second. Let's see what else. I want to thank Keith here, Keith Schumacher, the president of the club, for doing this. On November 3rd, I'll be voting for him to be president again of the club.
Don't threaten me.
I've been there. I know. So anyway, let me also mention about, I didn't mention this. I'm just filling in a few things that's coming to my mind as we go. The reason why you have a toothbrush in your box is that when you apply a polyurethane, especially something like this, the chips, you cannot have the polyurethane end up inside the grooves of your triangles, your chips, and all this. You can't let that dry in there. So what you do is you apply it, and then you immediately use your toothbrush and you get that out, because otherwise it'll look like nasty, gunky filler kind of stuff. So you wipe it and then you hit it with your toothbrush and you get it out the best you can. Then you let it dry and then you do it again. And you do it again as many applications as you want. That's the reason for the toothbrush. Let's see, what else?
And you use your wife's toothbrush to do that, right?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
That
She-
is not endorsed by the Wilderness Center.
Let's see, what else? I think this is a wonderful art form because you can make incredible heirlooms to families. It does not take a lot of artistic, it doesn't take as much artistic skill. I do also relief carving and in round and all that stuff. But if you like geometric patterns, then this is the thing to do. Also, I want to suggest that you join a club. I think that taking classes and joining a club it can increase your skill set in your learning curve fivefold. And the people that I associate with are much better in many things than I am. So anyway, I hope this has been helpful to y'all. Enjoy life and be safe.